All right, so breaking news this afternoon in the media world. Brian Stelter is out at CNN. The host leaving the network after his show Reliable Sources was canceled.
It's Brian Stelter. There it is. Oh, my God. I mean, that is a horror movie cover. Seriously, he is scarier looking than It the Clown. I mean, would you let your children anywhere near that psychopath? I mean, that is a psychopath right there. I mean, look at him. God. Oh, I mean, it cries out, danger, danger, alert, alert. I am a scumbag. I am filth. I am your enemy. I would literally not be able to finish my dinner if somebody walked over and talked to me that looked like these two guys. And I'm sorry. They're not just lying anti-American scumbags that want to run us all on the ground because they're little men. They're pieces of crap. They think they're better than everybody. That's what it's about. It's a spirit of evil, and we must break them. Oh. I've tried to do joke photos like this to look disingenuous, and I can make any face I want to. I can't pull it off because the eyes, Chico. It's always in the eyes. Oh, my gosh. Oh, hell on earth. He wants to run your life. He wants to control every aspect of your life because he knows he is a cowardly, degenerate sack of anti-human trash. I pledge before my Heavenly Father that I will resist them every way I can. These people are the literal demon spawn of the pit of hell. Look at him. And you know what? He is better than you if you keep letting him run your life. He runs your kids. He runs the schools. He runs the banks. This guy, this spirit, this smiling, leering devil that thinks you can't see what he is your enemy. Period. All the narcissistic, devil-worshipping filth. I see you, enemy. I see you, enemy. 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 You are my enemy. And I swear total resistance to you with everything I've got. Disingenuous, fake, false, broke back, twisted, a defiler, a betrayer, a backstabber, a devil. You will pay. Yeah, you think I don't see your face, scum? You don't think I don't see you, Stelter? I see you. You understand me? I know what you think of me and my family. I see you right back. You understand that? You understand that, Stelter? Stelter. You will fall. You will not bring humanity down. God is going to destroy you. Get him off the screen. Oh, God, they're so evil. Just please, God, free us from them. They're drunk on our children's blood, for God's sake.
Okay, welcome. It's Thursday, 18 August, year of our Lord 2022. Announcement this afternoon of really no surprise. John Malone, who's essentially the owner of the Time Warner apparatus, he's calling all the shots. He had, was it John Licht, who is runs CNN, called Stelter in yesterday and said, not only surprisingly, is Stelter gone after 9 years at CNN. More importantly, that reliable sources, which I think Howard Kurtz now where Fox started, it's been around for 30 years. That show is last episode will be Sunday, and he's the hall monitor. He's the obnoxious hall monitor for the progressive left. So not a surprising announcement, but John Licht, who is the CEO over there, under orders from Malone to clean it up and clean it up quickly. You'll be seeing, I'm sure, Don Lemon and others exiting here relatively rapidly. They're trying to turn it back to news. And, of course, the one and only Alex Jones giving his opinion. Of course, that was from a couple of years ago when he and Stelter were going head-to-head all the time, but he gave you his assessment of Brian Stelter, so reliable sources gone. I want to bring in, we got a lot to get to today. We got the great Ed Dowd. We got Dr. Harvey Risch is going to join us, Joe Allen, on this exploding story about the children's hospital in Boston, kind of shocking about what's going on there. I guess they call it gender-affirming surgery. We're going to get into all that. This story is metastasizing with Chris Rufo and Brian Brian Walsh and others. I want to go first. We're going to bring in Eli Crane, who won the primary out in Arizona. Eli, thank you for joining us. So, Eli, here's what I want to do. I want to play the Politics and Eggs clip from New Hampshire. I want Eli to comment. He wrote a brilliant column, but I want him to comment on this Mike Pence hit up there in New Hampshire. Let's play it.
The Republican Party is the party of law and order. Our party stands with the men and women who serve on the thin blue line at the federal and state and local level. And these attacks on the FBI must stop. Calls to defund the FBI are just as wrong as calls to defund the police. The truth of the matter is, we need to get to the bottom of what happened. We need to let the facts play out. But more than anything else, the American people need to be reassured in the integrity of our justice system, and the very appearance of a recurrence of politics playing a role in decisions at the Justice Department demands transparency as never before. And I will continue to call on the Attorney General and the Justice Department to make that information available to the American people, and do so now. Republican Party.
Pence, what are you going to do? You're going to call? It's all nonsense. We need a thing. It's all just happy talk and bromides. You have to take action. Rasmussen has a poll up this morning that 53% of the American people now believe that the FBI acts like a Gestapo, because they do. It's been politicized, and we can go through chapter and verse. Of course, Mike Pence and his guy, Mark Short, they're all working with the police state. They're up there ratting people out all the time at these committees. That's what they do. This is, Mark Short. You can't trust Mark Short. You can't trust the people around Pence. They're untrustworthy. His aides are all over CNN all the time, trash talking MAGA, trash talking Trump, trash talking you, the audience. It's outrageous. Eli, you wrote an amazing piece that really kind of walked through this. Your feelings about the FBI raid, about the DOJ, about Mar-a-Lago, President Trump, this kind of fishing expedition. But I'd like you first to give us some comments on Mike Pence and what he had to say up in New Hampshire, sir.
Well, thanks for having me on, Steve. I think it just shows the detachment between Mike Pence and the reality of the situation. Mike seems to be talking about the FBI like it's 20 years ago. This organization, we have seen time and time again in the pretty recent time frame, they're broken. They are broken, and they have been weaponized. They're extremely partisan, and it's not just the FBI raid on a former president, Trump's home, that has never happened in the history of this country. You got Merrick Garland, obviously, calling parents that show up to their kids' school that want to hold teachers and officials accountable for teaching their kids CRT, domestic terrorists. I have a friend named Mike Glover who is a former Green Beret, former Special Forces guy that started a company, and he's now on one of their watch lists. And he made a video a couple weeks ago called "I Am Not a Terrorist." And the ironic thing is, Steve, is that Mike Glover and many of us have worked with the FBI and other federal agencies in the past to try and protect this country. And now, if you don't go along with their agenda as they become weaponized and partisan, and basically the action arm of the Democratic globalist party, now you have become a terrorist yourself. And it's just sad to see the disconnect when, leaders like Mike Pence, that once had so much respect from so many of us, just don't get it. They just don't see reality. And it's why it's so important that this, this America First movement, folks like myself get an opportunity to get in there and help straighten it out, because we know, Steve, we are at war. This country, the heart and soul of this country right now, hangs in the balance. And if we keep acting like moderate Republicans and establishment Republicans who, want to fixate on big government, little government, tax law, we're going to lose this country. And that's why it's so important that we continue to, focus on, as you say all the time, signal and not noise.
Eli, I just want to give your bona fides, if you can walk through it, your service to the country, because you in this race in Arizona against how you are the MAGA candidate, you're the law and order candidate. So this is not coming from people who do not have the absolute back of the military and don't have the back and have the back of the police. Walk through what is your service to the country, and walk me through your bona fides as being the law and order candidate in this congressional race out in Arizona.
Well, absolutely, Steve. And this is what breaks my heart about it is, many of my friends, some of my best friends are in law enforcement, and they're the sled dogs. And this is a leadership problem, like so many of the leadership problems that we have across the board in this country. But I was a former Navy SEAL, Steve. I joined the Navy the week after 9/11. I actually dropped out of school my senior year to go do that. I love this country. I'm endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council. And, so it doesn't excite me at all to, in a sense, throw an organization that many of us looked up to for many, many, many decades under the bus and say, these guys have gone off the reservation. They must be reined in. And I think it's like a lot of things, Steve. I think it's a leadership issue. I think that we have to cut the head off of the snake, and we have to bring what's been done in the dark into the light. And that's going to take congressional hearings, but it's also going to take the great men and women in the FBI and other law enforcement agencies that are just as sick and tired of seeing this crap, who become whistleblowers and work with us so that we can straighten this out and we can restore confidence back in our nation's law enforcement. It's a sad day, Steve, and it brings me no pleasure at all to be even thinking about the FBI like many of us do now.
Let's put up Eli's piece. Eli, walk us through this. Take a minute or two and walk us through this piece that you wrote that I think is incredibly perceptive and kind of lays out your thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, Steve, I mean, it just goes into the fact that this raid is not an isolated incident. Okay, I talked about some of the other issues, but these bureaucracies, these organizations seem to get further and further away from what their charter is in protecting the American people and our constitutional rights. And like I said, they have become partisan. They have become weaponized. If you look at the contrast between what happens when Hillary Clinton bleach bits and, crushes, her servers and all of her emails, and there's nothing done about it. When you look at the fact that Hunter Biden is still walking the street, and then you look at what happened with the president while he was coordinating with the FBI to try and, get this straightened out and get them what they needed. We know that this is political, and that's what worries so many of us that have actually worn the uniform, have carried the firearms to protect men and women in this country. We know what happens. We've seen it overseas when, these bodies that are supposed to protect the populace get weaponized and turned on the populace. And that's why so many of us are speaking out about this, Steve.
Talk to us about, you won the primary. Talk to us about, and you won it handily. Talk to us about the race. Walk us through what's got to happen, where you're going, and then how do people get to your website? Because this is one that's, you're MAGA through and through and Trump endorsed. And so this is one that's obviously incredibly important.
Yes, Steve, it really is. It's Tom O'Halloran is a 3-term Democrat. We're trying to unseat him. He's been ranked the most vulnerable Democrat in the entire country. He's done nothing about the border. He continues to vote for all this legislation that's destroying our economy. And we have to unseat him. And you know what, Steve, one of the greatest things about a lot of what I'm seeing, especially with this raid on Mar-a-Lago, is it's doing something that I don't think the Democrats really took into consideration. It's actually uniting the party. And I'm seeing, individuals that, aren't always on the same page, whether we're MAGA or America First or more moderate Republican, actually unite and just, call this out for what it is and just the overreach that it is. And so if you guys want to help us out, if you want to help us flip Tom O'Halloran in the most vulnerable Democratic seat in the country, please go to EliForArizona.com. You guys can find me at Eli Crane CEO, Eli for Arizona on social media. We really appreciate this show, the activism, and it spurs us on every day to not just be about a bunch of talk, but action, action, action.
Eli Crane, former Navy SEAL, Trump endorsed in a tough one out there in Arizona. He's the MAGA candidate. Eli, thank you. The article was amazing, and thank you for your thoughts on Mike Pence. Look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, Steve.
Thank you. I want everybody to go to Eli and just check it out. Check out that site. Remember, if you can't give a donation, which is fine, to find out what you can do to help. Can you push out information? Can you be a force multiplier? We need everybody engaged here. Want to bring in Ed Dowd from Hawaii. Ed's one of the smartest guys out there about capital markets and trading, and he's a numbers guy. He was one of the top ranked portfolio managers at BlackRock. Which remember, you're not there for your personality. You're there for your brains and your trading instincts. Ed, as you and I, we've had you on a lot to talk about the economy and more of the traditional stuff you've done, but you've become, I don't say obsessed, you've become very focused and really getting to the bottom of a lot of the ground truth about the pandemic, about things that drove the world economy kind of to the brink, or I guess today still driving it to the brink. And you became really very focused on a couple of fundamental sets of data. It's leading to Tony Lyons and the great guy, Children's Health Defense. Tony Lyons, I think you're coming out with a book in the fall. I just want to give people a heads up that you're actually taking your research in this area and turning it into a book called Causes Unknown. Why don't you walk us through what you found that you believe now needs to be pulled into a book form so that you can explain it to people, sir?
Sure. So my journey began with anecdotes in this, early part of 2021. I had a thesis that something changed in 21. My thesis was vaccines, so I knew what to look for. And that was insurance company results, funeral home results, and then we dug into the CDC data and other databases across the globe. And what we found was that basically younger working age folks started dying at alarming rates in 2021 versus 2020. In the first year of the pandemic, pre-vaccine was mostly old people, and then the mix shifted to working age folks. And today I want to report something brand new. Yesterday I was notified by one of my insurance actuarial insiders that the Society of Actuary Research Institute put out a report on group life insurance mortality, excess mortality. And this is a survey of 80% of the revenues of the group life U.S. Industry. And basically, it confirms what myself and my Wall Street partner found on your show in February that we were doing individually, company by company. It confirms that in Q3, if you have table 5.7, you might want to show that. It confirmed that in Q3, into the mandates, there was an alarming spike in working age excess deaths. In the 35 to 44, it was 100% over normal for that quarter. This report, and the quote from my insiders to me about this society is basically this. She said, "Nerds, highest standards of data and quality ethics for real. You can rely on that report." So this is literally confirming what we've seen in the company results aggregated. It continues to show about 20% excess deaths currently into end of Q1 in this report. I am told by her that this number remains around that level going into Q2 from Q1. So the data has been confirmed by the Society of Actuaries. Now, whether or not they make the same conclusions I do, I won't go there because they're actuaries. They're not, the bravest people on the planet. But I'm a loud, brash Wall Street guy. I have my thesis. I believe I'm 100% right on what's causing the excess deaths in the U.S. and across the globe.
Okay, I just want to make sure we frame this properly. People would notice. You came on in February. You knew something was changing in 21. You started doing your research, and your thesis was, hey, what's new is this vaccine. This vaccine is now out and being promulgated, being pushed out. And you came on in February, and you kind of had this shocking news to say, hey, look, I've been running these numbers. I got a couple of insurance partners, and you can see that there's a higher, and it's not small. It's not 1 or 2%. These are 20% or higher, which is shocking. I mean, people should understand. And something like this, if you get outside the bandwidth by 1 or 2%, even that brings everybody down saying, what's going on? At 20% is like something monumental. What you're saying now is the Society of Actuaries doing their own analysis, is going to publish. It's been internal, but it hasn't been promulgated publicly, I guess. They are going to come forward to the best of your knowledge.
It's already public.
Go ahead.
I have a link on the Getter site. It came out yesterday, and my actuarial insider said, go look at table 5.7. It basically confirms everything you've said about the insurance industry. So
let's
the insurance
put it back up.
executive.
Let's put 5.7. Let's put 5.
Go ahead.
Okay, walk us through 5.7, because this should be the front page of the New York Times. This should be front page of the Wall Street Journal. The Financial Times of London should have a screaming headline. Even if the actuaries don't make the jump or don't go the logical conclusion of what you're saying, this is what the drivers are. Just the math in itself should shock people. Correct, Ed? In the normal course of business.
This should be front page of Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post. It should be on Fox, CBS, NBC, ABC. This needs to stop. What we see here, the red, as highlighted by this society, is an event. What was that event? That event was mandates into Q3, August, September, October. And what I showed earlier on your show several months ago was a breakdown of the millennial cohort, where I famously complained that proclaimed that the government had committed democide through mandates, and the numbers are there. So we showed the millennial age group saw a rate of change into 84% excess mortality in the third quarter of 2021, and boom, here's the Society of Actuaries confirming my work and my partner's work. There it is.
So where do we go from here? I mean, we'll obviously make sure the correct people get this, but now that it's out, tell me, because you have a theory of the case. The actuaries don't have to; they're just putting up the actuarial charts. How do you then make the link to what you're saying the case is of what's driving these the differences in death rates?
Well, so the naysayers have claimed that it's long COVID. They've claimed that it's suicides. They've claimed that it's missed screening cancer treatments, and they've claimed it's drug overdoses. The problem with that is you can see temporally the rate of change into the third quarter. And you can't say to me that all these events occurred simultaneously. Everyone decided to commit suicide, overdose on drugs, or miss their cancer screening treatments. It makes no sense for that age group. That's number one. So temporally, the rate of change is the smoking gun for that age group. Secondarily, we're working, my hedge fund partners and I are working on some data from the UK that's going to basically show a linkage between ages 1 through 14 of actual all-cause mortality coming down during 2020 and 2021 before that age group got vaccinated. And then mysteriously, as soon as the vaccines get rolled out, the cumulative deaths start rising. And you can't say that ages 1 through 14 are overdosing on drugs, missing their cancer screening treatments, or committing suicide. So the window is closing on what I call the death merchants, the death dealers. The evidence is becoming overwhelming, and I saw your show this morning, and the CDC is doing the 1-2 shuffle here to try to cover up what's coming. They know what's coming. It's becoming undeniable.
Well, okay, this is why we wanted to have you on today. We got Harvey Risch, obviously the great Harvey Risch, following you. We're going to try to get you on. We're doing a special tomorrow. The entire 6 o'clock hour is going to be on this topic. Do you believe that the CDC and the guys inside the apparatus understanding, hey, because they follow this show closely, hey, what you put out there in February, knowing that the Society of Actuaries were going to come to this conclusion, this is part of the reason they're saying the CDC has failed in their job, and they're trying to get ahead of this by saying that there's been certain failures, major failures at the CDC?
Absolutely. And if we go back in the time machine, when we started coming out with this data on your show, it wasn't that long after that they declared COVID pandemic over, and all of a sudden the Ukraine war started. So temporarily, this issue was kind of wiped off the board, but it's back and it's not going away. And this movement we're seeing from them is definitely an attempt to whitewash and cover up.
Ed, can you give how people, first off, can we put the cover of the book up? I take it we can't order the book yet. I talked to Tony Lyons. I just want to put the cover up. The cover's pretty amazing. It's going to be up on Amazon and Skyhorse and Children's Health Defense when it comes out. But this is where Ed's going to put a book out in this. Ed, I know you're getting banned every other day from someplace. Where do people go now to get to your writings and stay on top of this?
Getter and the website. I got some partners working on it. I want to get some stuff out there soon. But Getter at Edward Dowd, Dowd. I put the link to the full SOA report on Getter, and this is freely available. It's in PDF format. You can download it, read it. But I was pointed to table 5.7 by my industry insider who said this is a smoking gun.
Okay. Real quickly, Twitter banned you or shut you down? Other social media shut you down?
I was never on Facebook or Instagram. I never joined. I was on Twitter and got booted off Twitter for basically citing CDC data and peer-reviewed studies.
Exactly.
And that was it. I was gone.
That's the point I want to make. Ed Dowd, American Patriot, your work here has just been extraordinary. Can't wait for the book, and hopefully we'll talk to you after the show, get you on tomorrow night at 6 with Dr. Malone, Dr. Wolf. Hopefully we'll talk Harvey Risch into it too. Ed Dowd from Hawaii. Okay, short commercial break. Dr. Harvey Risch from Yale, and of course Joe Allen in the War Room.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back. Because they put out this report on a scathing report, as the mainstream media said about the CDC, we want to bring in Dr. Harvey Risch, who's been at this from day one. Doctor, you have stepped forward at your position at Yale with a lot of moral courage and warned America about what was going on. Give us your assessment. People want to hear what you have to say about this quote-unquote scathing report that I guess CDC has done on itself. Or has done in conjunction with some a senior executive service personnel from the public health apparatus. Can you give us your assessment?
Well, it's great to be with you, Steve. I don't really see this as a scathing report. I see this as a trivial report on issues that are not really straightforward, that the CDC recognizes that it has a truth and reliability issue with the American public. And rather than getting to the bottom of what their internal problems are, they attempt to paper over it with trivial reasons like what they're calling transparency, rapidity of response, and things like that, that are not the critical issues that they're facing. The problem with the CDC is that they have repeatedly put out fatally flawed studies on their morbidity mortality weekly report, which is their in-house journal. And they don't recognize that these are problematic studies and papers. These papers have 20, 30, 40 MDs and PhD epidemiologists on them. All these people are signing off on this work that purports to be science, but it's all bogus. And the reason that it's bogus is because of actual technicalities that make these studies flawed. For example, reporting on a survey that got 8 to 13% response rate, that would be laughed out of any epidemiology journal. And yet they take that seriously with a straight face and purport to say that that's representative of some study of people that they surveyed. And there are other numerical errors that they've made throughout these publications that make them untrustworthy and unreliable. And that's led to
But hang on for a second. But hang on. Before you've dedicated your life to this, and you're one of the top people in this country working at a top institution, Yale. When you say something like that to an average schmo like myself and the rest of our audience, it's like that would be something you would correct of a graduate student that said, "Hey, you just didn't understand how to do the math. Here's how you do it." What I think boggles people's minds is in something that was this catastrophic for the country, how did they consistently do these types of things when you just said they had 30 or 40 doctors or PhDs? And these people they're all credentialized. They all come from the top places in the country. The CDC is all run by Dr. Winsky. They all went to the top medical schools. They're all the best and the brightest. So how does something that fundamental, when you mention it to guys like Evans, well, that's so obvious. How did it even get through their own committees internally? So explain to the civilian out there, how could this possibly happen? And it's not one guy that made a mistake. You said there's 30 or 40 doctors. You got the whole CDC apparatus. They're putting this stuff out, and it's not like it's minor stuff. This is what the country's making massive decisions, not just in our economy, but for our whole way of life.
So one particular egregious thing that they did exemplifies why this is a problem and where it comes from. And that was they did basically state by state analyses of masking, I think. And then they picked one state. There's variation from state to state in the results. They picked the state that had the most positive results of the case that they wanted to make. They cherry picked the state and put that out as if that's science. That is the problem, that they are using science to cherry pick science to represent predetermined policies that they want. And so as far as I can tell, the underlying problem is their paternalism, that they think that they are exalted and experts and know better than the people in the public about how to manage their lives and how to manage their behaviors and how to manage their medical status. And that paternalism is a failed public health motive. It fails on constitutional rights grounds, and now we've found that it's failed on technological science grounds as well. So when the CDC says that it's planning to be transparent, what that means is we want you to think we're transparent, but we're still going to be paternalistic. We're just going to hide our lack of transparency better. So there's no reason to believe that they're going to be transparent. The problem is politicization and the use of science to further their political motives.
One thing that's disturbing, and when they go through this whole thing, they really, the core of it, they're getting down, they want more resources, and they actually said they ought to be given more mandates epidemiologically to actually have more emergency, the ability to call for more emergency. Am I wrong in my assessment that they, after citing their faults of transparency and these other things, their solution is more money, more resources, and a bigger scale at a federal level to really put out more dictates and really call whether there's more pandemics or not?
Well, part of that is correct, that the CDC has always had trouble getting data from the state health departments. Some states are compliant and some are resistant. And this has gone back to the toxic shock episode of the early 1980s. And since then as well, that states can be slow in registering their events. And they may get to the CDC months later, or maybe not. Nobody quite knows. And so the CDC is right. Dr. Redfield told me that he had tried to put a CDC staffer in each state public health department so that could coordinate getting the data. And Congress wouldn't fund it. It was an expensive proposition. Congress wouldn't fund it. So there's some reason to think that it's true that the CDC does not have enough resources to be able to acquire data rapidly from across the country and representatively. On the other hand, giving the CDC carte blanche to make even worse policy pronouncements than they've done in the last 2 years would just be even more catastrophic. That they've proven that they can't handle the responsibility of providing objective results. And so what they've done is they've channeled messaging from a top-down approach rather than actually looking at science and formulating actual objective scientific results. CDC came out last week and said that the vaccines are not a viable method of reducing transmission of the virus, neither the original shots nor the booster system. And they quietly said this as if to say, oh, the science has been changed. Well, the science hasn't changed. It's their evaluation got held up to light to show that they were wrong in their policy in the first place. And we were saying this a year or more ago, that this was not going to work in the long term, and that's what happened eventually. And so finally, the CDC was forced to concede that this was the case because everybody knows of all the people who've been vaccinated and been getting COVID. And so, for them to admit to the reality is, if they hadn't, it would have been an even worse credibility stain on them. But as it is now, they're just kind of ignoring their whole past and hoping that everybody will forget the last 20 minutes and just see what they said now. But we're not willing to do that.
How is it that these group of professionals, you've said this, and Naomi and both Dr. Malone said this morning, which kind of chilled me to the marrow of my bones, that they don't really believe in science, and they want to use science just to fulfill, not real science, but scientism to fulfill their policy objectives. How is it that this many professionals from this many great institutions credentialized? I think what's scary is when you guys say that, and you guys are so respectable, it's all about science, all about the evidence, all about the data, and you're saying these great institutions of ours are now really practicing scientism. How did that happen?
Well, I wouldn't put it exactly that way. I would say that what they're practicing is technologism, that I'd say 90% of what is science is not actually science, it's technology. That using scientific equipment and making measurements and drawing conclusions isn't quite science. It's a technological and technical process, but the science is making hypotheses about how nature works and then making measurements in order to see whether those theories work or are refuted. And so relatively few of us are actually scientists. Most doctors are not scientists. Very few of them. Doctors that get masters in public health degrees are not scientists. Doctors who get PhDs and do a dissertation may be scientists, but again, it depends on whether they're pushing a technological measurement to see whether this biological test, measures some particular thing. It's a measure of the technology, not of a scientific question about how nature works. And this is a subtle question that is not even apparent to scientists as a whole, let alone to the lay public. So relatively few people are actually asking scientific questions because they want to know how nature works. And it just happens that it applies to the medical or public health circumstances we're in.
Well, we said this is going to be a huge fight, and it's just the opening round on this about the CDC, because it's going to be restructured. And Dr. Risch, I know your voice is going to be one that people are going to want to reach out to. How can people find you on social media? How can they stay up with your thinking, sir?
I have a Telegram channel at Harvey Risch, MD, PhD, or they can Google Risch and Yale. That's the two words, and I come up, and that has a link to my Telegram channel. It also has information about me on the Yale website.
Dr. Harvey Risch, thank you. Honored to have you on here for joining
Pleasure.
us. Look forward to having you back, sir.
Pleasure.
One of the most respected men in the country in this field. Let's go. We get another great institution up in Boston, one of the most revered institutions in our country and the world, about healthcare for children. And there is a firefight going on right now. Let's play this open. Remember this, the cartoon we're about to show you comes from probably some of the smartest guys in the country about culture and about what really drives a culture. So let's play this, and I'll bring in Joe Allen.
Who the hell do you think you are? Dr. Biber. What kind of nut job would agree to surgically alter my son into a tall African American? Oh, you're Kyle's father. That's right, and I also happen to be a lawyer, and I'm gonna have you sued for malpractice and your clinic shut down. What is that on your shirt? What the? They're dolphins. Why? Oh, you like dolphins, hmm? I love dolphins. Ever since I was a child, I dreamt of... But that has hardly any bearing on what I'm here to... I can make you one. What? Invert the back, move the esophagus to the top of the head. Yes, a full dolphinoplasty could be achieved relatively simply. Make me a dolphin?
If I could swim with the dolphins, the soft and gentle dolphins, why can't I swim with the dolphins?
No, it's crazy. There's nothing crazy about a person wanting to look on the outside the way they feel on the inside.
Gerald! What happened to you?
That doctor is a miracle worker, Sheila. I'm the happiest I've ever been. Look, Ike, your daddy's a dolphin.
A dolphin?
Sheila, it was wrong of us to be so judgmental of Kyle. If he isn't happy with who he is, then who are we to deny him surgery that will make him feel better about himself?
Gerald, this is crazy!
Oh, I used to think I was crazy, but Dr. Biber told me that there are a lot of other people out there who are trans species. All I did is change my appearance to look the way I felt here. And I'm telling you now that if we don't let Kyle do the same, he may never be happy. Ever. We owe him more than that, Sheila. We owe him understanding.
Okay, we're going to bring in our editor, Joe Allen. That is obviously comedic, but it has a very powerful message that show often does, and strikes to the heart of it. Joe Allen, there's this major controversy at Boston Children's Hospital around what they're actually doing, and this is, these are not a bunch of quacks. This is one of the most revered institution for the health of children, not just in the nation, but in the world. So walk us through what does that cartoon at the beginning mean, and tie it to this controversy that's going on.
Well, Steve, it's good to see a little comedy relief in a horrific situation like this. That was South Park, of course. And interestingly enough, the town that clinic was in the show South Park is Trinidad, Colorado. Trinidad, Colorado is where the first major transgender surgery was conducted in the U.S., and that was in 1969. It's basically kind of spread out since then. Of course, the procedure and the attempts go back further. But I think that, you see a guy who wants to become the dolphin he always felt like he was. It may seem ridiculous, but I really don't think it's too far off from the sorts of extremes people are going to in order to alter themselves. And of course, when you take into account institutions like Boston Children's Hospital, and you see that there's a push to allow children to determine what sort of body they're going to have by way of surgical knives, it's all so absurd. Most people look at just something as crazy as the demand for one to acknowledge someone's pronouns. Somebody says, "I want to be called they from here on out." And it's just appalling. They can't even comprehend why a society would move in that direction and how a sane society could. And my response is, I don't think that a sane society can. I don't think we are a sane society, at least not those segments that have detached themselves so far from reality that they are, one, willing to sort of entertain people's delusions, but two, that they would not just encourage.
But hang on. But hang on. When you say that, they say that they're delusional and it's us. This is the heart of the medical profession. I mean, Boston Children's is not some bunch of quacks in some Chautauqua traveling around the country at some carny. This is in Boston, which is, I still believe, along with New York City, the medical center of the universe. It's got obviously Harvard Medical School there, but it is a railhead of so much of the great innovation and what's going on. And Boston Children's is world renowned. So these are not people on the margin. These are people in the heart of actually providing health care to children. And I think the point is that they are actually have an active program on this that is active. I mean, they're proactive. They are very active in doing this and messaging in it, putting commercials out, and building a big practice on what's called, what it's referred to as gender affirming. What is gender affirming?
Gender affirming simply says that the medical establishment will treat a patient according to what they declare their gender to be, regardless of sex. Steve, I think that Boston is absolutely a hub of not only medical innovation, but also scientific discovery and just, intellectual ferment in general. It just shows how detached from reality intellectuals and scientists and technologists can be from the deeper realities of human life and the universe. The biomedical establishment, which has become the object of such mistrust and derision over the past 2.5 years, that's the same establishment that in the 90s and early 2000s was pushing antidepressants, which have been shown to be not only ineffective, but increasingly damaging to people's bodies and minds as they take them over time. Same thing with the opioid crisis pushed out through Purdue Pharma and OxyContin. Also now with the vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna and J&J, it doesn't really matter if reality keeps smashing their ideals over and over and over again. They have enough clout, enough power, and enough wealth to weather that storm and to continue to push these sorts of things on the population. So when you talk about child gender affirming care, to me, it just fits in with the broader sort of system that we're talking about, one in which power and prestige and status have completely overtaken just normal common sense. And it's a horrific situation because many people won't seek medical care in the future because they don't trust that system.
Yeah. But by the way, we're going to have you back on tomorrow. We're going to break. We got the show starts again at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We still got the Elon Musk thing to get to about the robots, but I got to continue this. This story only gets bigger. And I also want to tell our audience about why we selected South Park. South Park had done a number of parts about that. I want the one on dolphin because it ends with trans-species, and of course you're having a belly laugh. Hey, what Elon Musk is just in the Daily Mail yesterday talking about the woman who was his partner who he had a couple of kids with. She wanted to have surgery to have elf ears, and he had had to talk her out of it. Transhumanism, all this about this gender ideology is the predicate and the substrate of what we talk about transhumanism. And don't laugh. Trans-species is part of that. That's already kind of, the South Park, this thing's from a couple of years ago. This is crazy. Well, yeah, you may say it's crazy, but it's going on. And this is what we keep talking about transhumanism so much when we talk about the Great Reset and everything. The core of that, and the reason we have Joe as our full-time editor on it, he's on special project right now, is that this is signal, not noise. And that's why we get to the bottom of. Joe Allen, real quickly, how do people get to all your social media to follow you? You're going to be back on the morning show tomorrow. How do people get to you in the interim?
Yeah, you can find me on Getter at JOEBOTXYZ. Also my website, joebot.xyz, and of course, warroom.org. Thank you very much, Steve.
You can't get him on Twitter like Rufo and Matt Walsh because of this exact story. We'll be back here tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. See you then.